we have this conflict. Marijuana has always sort of straddled in between because it can do both things for both groups.
Let's talk a little bit about the negative side of cannabis, because I've been using cannabis regularly and constantly for 20 or so years. I mean, I'm the kind of user that uses it from the moment I wake up till the moment I go to bed. And I find that for me personally, the benefits are wonderful. I think more clearly. I'm more relaxed. I'm not as anxious. I sleep better. I find myself to be a better person.
Yeah, I don't doubt that that's the case. I think the problem is the conversation gets clouded and too broadly applied. I think the information about pediatric exposure is fairly compelling that it's a bad idea. And actually, I would sort of share with you an experience I had, completely unrelated, but you sort of reminded me of it.
Sure.
I was when Sky and I were on our honeymoon in South Africa. We actually spent some time, and actually got remarried again in a Zulu village.
Wow.
Part of the experience, that we sort of signed up for was that the men sort of took the men, the women took the women. They taught each person part of their tribal sort of rituals. And so my only job, so poor Sky, she had to learn like 15 different songs in Zulu, all these different patterns of dance. I was literally just sitting with the boys drinking this beer in this sort of like a hut-like thing. And we were just passing this ladle around. And again, I can't believe I did this, given when we got married and the HIV rates come back then. but I did it. It was part of the thing. But in the midst of this sort of like drunken haze of just this this beer being passed around, I was noticing literally the weeds inside this hut, and I said, "Hey, that looks like marijuana," and they go, "It is." And I was just like, "Wow, do you guys just like it just grows everywhere?" And they said, "Yes, it's literally a weed." And then I asked them, if everyone used it. He says, "No, only the elders are allowed to use it. You have to be older than, I think it was 35 or 40. And wow. I think given how ubiquitous it is, their understanding generationally through, oral culture, they've probably learned what we have sort of through science learned, that giving cannabis too early to somebody does bad things to their brain. This was something literally for the So, I mean, I think waking baking in your 30s and 40s, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I think if somebody who's 18 takes that lesson from somebody who's older, I think that can be very dangerous. And we definitely do see that.
Sure, because the brain in a young adult is still developing till about what age? What are we? 35. Okay, wow. Wow. Yeah. Well, I've got a lot of time in prior to that, so it'll be interesting to see what the results are as I get older. I wonder, does it tie into long-term cognitive issues? Is there, you hear about the memory loss and all that associated with it. I have not experienced that. I feel like an elephant as far as my memory goes. I'm sure later on there could be issues.
Well, I mean, I think, people have different physiology. And, there are people, I remember George Burns, he smoked a cigar every day of his life until he died at like 80 or whatever. Some people just don't sort of follow that typical pattern. But when you talk about Western medicine, we look at sort of population-based statistics, and I think in general, if you start too young, and what's too young, I don't know that number. Again, I don't do adolescent psych. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. But my feeling, my understanding from talking to people who are in that world is 25, 27, 30, fine. 18, 16, 18, not fine. Where's that sort of, that point in between? I think it sort of depends on the person and who they are and who their family is and what their conditions that run in their family. And I think, schizophrenia, one of the things that I've seen a couple times just through consultation, it is one of those things that, if you have a lot of it in your family, be very, very careful.
Sure.
This can unleash it, it seems. Sure. Yeah.
Good.
If you don't, who knows?
I don't, so I'm holding out hope that everything will be okay and I can continue these habits ongoing.
Yeah. No, I think, the fact that You were more on time for this interview than me. Suggests that this has not impacted you in the way that we typically think.
Well, I appreciate that sentiment.